automation is introduced in the office, believe it or not, most of the time people don't lose jobs because the existing operation goes on while they're installing the new automation. And so it actually adds jobs in the beginning. And very often these offices will not retrench the people. They will keep them. But what they will do is as the automation comes in, they will not hire new people. As the workers retire, they will not replace them with more people. They will replace them with automation. This does not mean that all the people will be replaced by automation. Far from it. What's going to mean that 4 people who used to handle 4 calls at one time will now be handling 16 calls at one time. So companies will be able to do more with less people, with the proper investment. Dexterous automation. A lot of robots that we know of are really robots that you see in the factories. But those are really the robots made by the likes of KUKA, who like Germany, or some robotic companies in Japan, and they're usually used in big, large factories that, for example, make cars. However, we're going to see a lot of dexterous robots that do the little things our fingers can do, and sometimes even better. This is disruptive to the Philippines because the Philippines has light industry, where a lot of our workers are doing small things with their fingers. When you have robots like this, then that is really disruptive for the likes of the semiconductor industry. And the ones making the biggest investments here are the Foxconn, the Taiwanese company, and other Chinese companies, because their labor is becoming expensive. If you look at this slide, these are the technologies that have the greatest effect on jobs. And this was done years ago. I will show you a few more slides with more information. Okay? Before I get to do that, not all disruptors are technology related. Many of them are demographic. Many of them are related to the education of a population. The younger people know how to do a lot of things that the older people can't even figure out how to do. A lot of people change their way of life. In the United States, a lot of people are living at home longer and not getting married, or getting married later. If you look at China, their population is getting older, but because they had a population control program, they may not, 20 years from now, they may not have enough middle-class people to support the retirees. Around the world, among the pension systems, the only countries I am aware of that have fully funded pensions based on their demographic future are Norway, Chile, Singapore, and Australia. All the others are going to have a big problem because their pensions are paid by people currently working and not necessarily based on investments. And therefore, as the population shrinks because few people are having children, and as the population grows older, and the younger ones have to support the older ones, those younger ones are going to pay a much larger proportion of their salary to support the older ones. The bad thing about that is that those younger ones may move to a different country to get away from the tax. So what is the country going to do? They're going to seek immigrants to cover what the people who have left. Balance of trade. People change preferences all the time. When these changes in preferences happen, they affect the market. The last time I was in Los Angeles, I heard that a lot of the people graduating college and graduating high school did not know how to drive. They didn't want to learn how to drive. They just said to their parents, give me the money, I'll use Uber. I don't need to own a car. I don't have to pay for a garage. I don't have to do repairs. I'm just going to use this money. I don't need to know how to drive. Anyway, I live in Los Angeles. When those preferences change, the whole market change because the car companies sell less cars. There's a desire for electric cars. We haven't seen very many electric cars, and the reason is there's a lot of cycle time related to designing a new car. But come 2020, we're going to see a deluge of electric cars all over the world, primarily in the richer Western countries. But as you probably have noticed, those cars end up here in the Philippines 3 years later. And fewer piston engine cars will be sold. Okay, so if you look at this, it's a little bit hard to see, but you'll see that there are certain jobs that are probably not affected by these disruptors, but they are jobs that are hard to automate. These are the dentists, the doctors, clergy. I mean, you're not going to see mass being done by a robot or computer or any kind of automation. Firefighters, caregivers. But you will see changes in a lot of jobs like accounting, lawyers, maybe real estate agents, travel agencies. And if you look at the right side, it's very small, but when this study was made, some of the jobs that are not at risk were listed, and they are truck drivers and taxi drivers. Incorrect. Right now as we speak, there are taxis going around Singapore being driven by the vehicle. The drivers that are there are only there in case the vehicle makes a mistake or loses control, but their hands are not on the steering wheel. In the future, in large cities, maybe 10 years from now, maybe earlier, you're going to see taxis driving themselves. Already in the mining business, you have trucks being driven by computers. They run 24 hours a day, they cost less, and in fact, they're more precise. Somebody told me an anecdote when they first designed the trucks, they had a problem because they drove too accurately. They were driving on exactly the same parts of the road every time they would ride the road, and they were making deep ruts inside the road, and so they were getting stuck in the mud. So what they did is they introduced errors in the driving so they wouldn't drive at the same place at the same time. I don't know if you saw, but this week there was a report that Microsoft has developed a very realistic voice synthesizer that really sounds like a person. And the way they did it is by introducing speech impediments. Because a robot speaks very correctly, very accurately, without mistakes. What they did is they programmed the synthesizer to say, and the moment they put that in, people believed it was a real person talking. So this is a graph that's very interesting. I used the United States because this is the only country I could get long-term data on. If you look at the light blue shade, the lightest blue shade here, the lightest blue shade is the population of farmers in proportion to total workers. As you can see, the United States has gotten really, really productive in farming. A lot of it is because of the new breed of crops. If you look at the new farmers now, they have drones that are mapping out their farms. And these are farmers who own their own farms. These are not big, large corporations. And essentially these